So, your business experience. Before we dive into CFS and the global business mentoring, I'd love to get a sense of your business instincts and where your sort of entrepreneurial mindset, where it really started. So, would you be able to walk me through where did your business experience start?
Okay, so really in sixth form, doing my A levels in the first year, got involved with Young Enterprise, which is where business people come in and teach basically 16, 17-year-olds how to set up and run a small micro business that you run for your school year. And then at the end of the year, different schools compete for different prizes. Loved the business concept, changed from going to do engineering at university and then went to do business at university instead. Did a placement with a local business, felt it was definitely business for me, and I started my first business within literally a couple of months of graduating back in 1989.
So, before you started CFS, was there a business before CFS and in between graduating? Could you walk me through what sort of, I guess, business you tried, maybe what the sort of models you've tried, what sort of industries you've been in?
Although there'd been a few businesses with previous generations in the family, I didn't have any real experience. It was basically just whilst at uni, although I studied business and finance with a logistics specialism, I did a placement with a small local company that was a garage business, a coach business, a funeral business. So I could see how many successful businesses had more than one product or service. I ended up, after I graduated, working for the biggest coach holiday operator in Europe. And whilst I was there, we bought a coach from them and we set up a little business here in partnership and ended up running that for a couple of years. So my background really has been what I learned from an academic sense, but could see there was business opportunities. And then really right the way through my business career, it's been sort of looking at what opportunities are there at the time and what I think, yeah, let's have a go and see what we can have a go at. Some have worked, some haven't.
So, how do you approach opportunities from when you first started in business to now? Is there some sort of mental framework that you use to identify opportunities?
I think the first thing is do I think it's something I would enjoy doing? And is it something that I think has got a real chance of making money and being able to grow? So I've never really been interested in lifestyle businesses, just basically buy myself a salary. I've always been interested in looking for something that you think, yeah, that could grow. I've got an interest and I've got some experience in it. Because I think as well as business skills, you need to know something about the business that you're going into. So it's just been looking at opportunities. Very much a lot of it has been in the right place at the right time, where an opportunity has arisen either because people are looking to exit the business, it was developing sector, or I could see developing trends that perhaps others couldn't. So I thought, let's have a go with it. So there's not been any one particular format other than, is it something that I think I would enjoy, and is it something I think I can scale, and something that has got growth potential, and also something that you can get out of. Always think of the exit strategy before you start.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, would you be able to maybe just go over a few opportunities that, from your perspective, that you probably wouldn't pursue?
So I think now it's where there's a heavy dependence on other people, a lot of staffing. The labour market has changed a lot over my time. Where you're reliant on other people, I feel that you're putting there's a lot more risk than you're relying heavily on other people. Premises is another problem in this area, trying to find suitable premises that have got easy in, easy out terms, yet security. You don't want to be tying up to long-term leases. If the business grows, you want to move on. If it doesn't, you want to be able to get out. And equally, you want flexibility to move. So it's basically more to do with the constraints of premises, staffing, and then things that I think are fads that, at the moment you're getting all these people saying, oh, well, let's get this online PDF farming, let's get this, let's get that. Over the years, there's been so many fads of my generation that you've seen and heard, and you think, okay, this time next year, you'll be doing something else. And if you've earned $50 million, why realistically are you trying to do this? So it's keeping away from fads as well is the other thing.
So it's quite obvious that you've got the experience with running successful a business. Now you're onto mentoring. That leads me to what was the first big win in business that you've had?
I think back in the very early days, I was running a small local coach business here whilst I was still working. I was traffic manager for northwest of England for the big company, and then made the decision that basically I was better off concentrating on my business, so I left. And then within a matter of months, one of my former colleagues was basically contacted me saying, can we subcontract for this work to you? So I ended up, through contacts, I became one of the major subcontractors to the big organization. And then I ended up subcontracting most of that out to other operators. So I was making more money as being the middleman, effectively an agent, taking work in, subcontracting it out, and making decent margins as a result of that. So that was probably the first big hit at 21. Again, right place, right time, right contacts, network, and taking an opportunity and a risk. I was regularly having work for 20, 25 coaches when we only had 5 ourselves. So much bigger scale than we were able to do ourselves. So that was probably my first big money spinner, a big hit.
Now, on the contrary, what is probably one of the lowest points that you've had that has really tested you in your professional career?
So that would probably be rolling on a bit to 1999, when I had taken redundancy to set up a new funeral business, having done all the market research, done everything. All of the information suggested that it was the right place, the right time. We opened a new funeral home and we didn't do a single funeral out of there. So I had premises on lease. I had kitted everything out. I bought the fleet and we didn't get any work in at all. So the cash that I had behind me was diminishing literally on a weekly basis. And that's when I started to think, am I going to end up going bankrupt? All the negativity of your mind when you're sat there on your own, phone not ringing, nobody around you, and you just start thinking, I'm never going to make any money, I'm going to be bankrupt, you're going to lose the house, everything. So that was probably the lowest part back in 99, opening that business, which we eventually managed to close and offload everything within 2 years.
Now, your most successful business, you could say, was CFS.
Yes.
Caerphilly Funeral Services. So how did that opportunity come about, and what drew you into the funeral profession in the first place?
Okay, so going back to my university days, I went to Newcastle, which is about 400 miles from South Wales. Had to do an industrial placement. I wanted to come back home. So I found the local business that had multi aspects, which I wasn't fully aware of when I first went to them. Part of that was the funeral side. They provided hearses and limousines to funeral directors back in the days when they were all pretty much small one-man bands. I got to know a two funeral directors that I kept in contact with, and I could see that it was a good business to be in. So rolling on then to started up in '99, so my own business wasn't doing anything. I had hearse limousine, so I started offering those to other businesses. The business that I had done a placement with had closed down by then, so I approached their previous clients. Some of them remembered me, so I used my network and then started hiring hearses and limousines out to those. The owner of Caerphilly Funeral Services at that time, we had previously worked together in a local transport business. So again, there was an established contact. He started using my limousines over a period of about 18 months. The trust built up. I started covering him when he went on holiday, so I was arranging funerals, directing funerals. And then a couple of years later, him and his wife were looking to retire. They didn't have any children. We were in our early 30s at that time, and basically they said, "We've got an offer if you can match it." It was one of a number of business sales that we were looking at. It was the best one, and we managed to pull a deal together in 2004, and that remained the main funeral business right through until we sold it a couple of months ago in 2025.
So when I was doing the background research on Caerphilly, one of the most notable things that is very striking is the online presence across social media. With the reach and the engagement that CFS has had online, what impact has that had on the business overall?
So the funeral industry has changed hugely in the UK, and I always run it as a business as opposed to being a funeral director with staff around me. So I was always looking at new ideas. I wanted to scale the business. I wanted to expand our area. We had reached, we had about 80% market share of funerals in our town. So I knew we couldn't get any larger. I needed to expand the area. I could see that things were changing. We were no longer dealing with the surviving husband or wife. In some cases, it was the grandchildren we were dealing with. So I knew that we needed to look at new markets. I've always had a team of experts around me, quasi-directors, board members. And at that time, I was introduced to somebody who was quite young, who was very much in social media. I didn't and still really do social media personally. I trusted him. And basically this is the way forward. It was all very radical. So we did it. As the years progressed, we found that we were getting more funerals from out of our traditional area. And a lot of those were people who lived out of South Wales, but needed to arrange a funeral for somebody in South Wales. And we also every year picked up a couple of funerals that were way out of our area. But people asking, could we do the funeral? So we ended up in a situation that most other funeral directors were seeing declines in their business, but we were actually, when others were quiet, we were still ticking over, and we effectively reached a peak just before COVID hit. And even to later days, we were finding that our number of funerals was going up. Our area that we were working in, our geographical area, was expanding, and we had a lot of people who were pre-purchasing their future funerals with us, again from out of the area, all wanting more modern services and all seeing what we could deliver via our social media campaigns. And also we broke a lot of the barriers down. So people were emailing us, calling in, ringing us, messaging us, asking questions that to us were simple questions, but to them were major questions. They didn't perhaps feel like they could ring a funeral director, but they could quite happily message us via Facebook, WhatsApp, any other format. And so it really transformed the business and enabled us to grow in many areas, maintain numbers in other areas, and develop new opportunities. So it really worked for us.
So, in your opinion, what makes, I guess, the ideal social media video, social media post, or just piece of content for funeral homes that, I guess, connects with the right people in the right area? Do you have some sort of framework that you follow for that?
I think the first thing is, it's not a short term. You've got to have a long-term strategy. It's got to be integral to your business. You've got to test and see what your local market wants, and you've got to have content that engages with people. So, for example, we learned that by being informal, introducing other members of the team, going behind the scenes, looking at the sort of questions, asking people, is there anything you would like to know? But the main thing was on video content, we're sticking to something that wasn't too long. So the reels worked well. On most posts, it was getting a good headline hit with a hook and then a call to action. It was really testing. A lot of what we tried didn't work, but we found that it was really allowing people to see that you're just a normal person, but that you're professional and you know your business, and preempting what you think they would want. And when people reached out to us, ensuring that we followed up those leads within hours, not leave it until the end of the week, or not as many have done, have somebody look at it on a Friday morning. It was to make it an integral part of the business and see that everything was followed up in the same way as you wouldn't expect. If somebody telephoned you, you wouldn't expect them to have a message sat on an answer phone for a week. It was get back to everybody. High quality content, which is why we went outside. We didn't produce any of our videos internally. So we had people who had the expertise, had the equipment. And so it's something, it's not a short-term fix, but it's the best investment that you can make.
Yeah. So, yeah, from what you've said, correct me if I'm wrong, your framework was sort of educational yet engaging, high quality. Would have your hook, and then the content would be, obviously it would be the engaging, it would be the education, and then you'd play around with the call to actions and sort of try different variations and see what really resonates, and then you've just really honed in on that, and then seen the benefits.
And it was also looking at what was in the news. So obviously the biggest thing in our time was the death of the Queen. So we had initial posts out, and then after we had, we focused on how the Queen's funeral had been pre-planned, rehearsed, why you should also pre-plan your funeral. Celebrity funerals, if there was something in, my wife's a big soap fan, so if there was something in the soap, she would tell, and then we jump onto that. So it was really following up on what was going on in wider society, because it would be the focus of conversations. But yeah, it's finding the hook. So sometimes that was what's going on in the world around you, either worldwide or even local. Getting videos out where we did something a little bit different, with family permission, putting videos out of the funeral. Did you know you could do this? Today we had the privilege of conducting the funeral for. It was really, very often we'd have a plan. Beginning of each month, we'd set out a plan for the month. But I would say probably over a third of our posts were spontaneous, depending on something that was happening or something that we could see. So again, long term, but you've got to make it part of your daily business.
So with all of the knowledge that you've gained about funeral home content, what is the best advice in maybe a few sentences or a few words? What is the best advice that you would give to funeral home owners who want to build a following and have a meaningful impact like CFS?
First thing is, you've got to do it, because if you don't do it, competitor will. And the other part is, it's your front door. It's getting you to people that would not normally get to you. So high quality, be professional, take the long-term view, and have a clear idea of where you want to go. It will happen as long as you've got high quality content. Ideally, use somebody external to the business. You haven't got time to do it yourself. You need somebody who can manage it for you, that you trust, and it will work, but it has to be a long-term goal.
Zooming out from the content side of things and more just on the overall running, managing, growing a funeral home side, what is the most important advice that you would give to funeral home owners today in July 2025?
I think the bigger thing is, you have to be professional. You have to understate and over deliver. You have to be reliable, and you can't rely on the traditional business model of people who've used you for generations coming to you. They won't. The world is changing, and you need to have a social media presence. You need to be engaging with potential future business, and you need to be seen as being approachable for those people to come to you when they need you, and building your brand awareness so they know who you are, where you are, and what you can deliver.
When I speak to a few funeral home owners, or I read some posts on forums, I do see that price is it's seen as a little bit different compared to other industries. Like raising your prices is almost seen as doing the community a disservice. I just want to hear your opinion on your sort of pricing. How do you view pricing? Are you priced above competitors? Are you priced below competitors? Are you priced at the same price as the competitors, and then you just have your large social media presence bring more people in? How did that work for you?
Okay. When we bought the business originally, it was very much competing on price. By the end, we didn't compete on price. We were probably one of the most expensive funeral directors on the face of it. The reality was that what we had was a mix of packages. So it was very much, the analogy I always use to my staff was, imagine if you book in a hotel. So you go to a 5-star hotel, they'll have different packages. They'll have a room only. They'll have allocate the room on arrival. If you want a room with a balcony, a sea view, you'd expect to pay more for it, but you'll get it. Your meal options, you could have room only, bed and breakfast, evening dinner, all inclusive, and that's what we had. So we had everything from, our cheapest funeral was a non-attended cremation at £1,500, including cremation fee, up to our standard professional fee for making the arrangements, excluding any coffins, any limousines, was £3,500. But overall, we found that there was no hidden extras. So on the face of it, we may look more expensive, but it was when people knew that you didn't pay extras for handles on coffin. Our fee included a hearse. You didn't pay extra for a hearse. Once people realised that there were no hidden extras, but equally, we also had a menu system that if you only wanted us to arrange the very simple things, you could. A lot of the other things were added value. So, for example, with limousines, we offered that if you had a limousine with us, we would return you from the wake afterwards. And so we saw limousine hire increase after years of decline, because people were now realizing the wake was important. And traditionally, after the service at the crematorium or cemetery, the limousine would drop people off at the wake, and then they'd have to find their own way home. With us, we would return and pick them up to 3 hours later and return them home. So it was the added value that people weren't, so they could see, well, yeah, that 30-40 pounds more, but it saved them more in the long term. It was the added value of feeling more special, of having the limousine come back to collect them. Little things they could leave things in the car. So there was a lot of added value, high quality. We had the newest fleet of hearses and limousines in the area, the highest standards of funeral home, the highest standards of training. So people could see why we were paying extra. And it's the same analogy as going back to hotels. You can have a budget hotel, you can have a high standard 5-star hotel. They've all got their places in the marketplace. But again, we found that as long as people could see that we were a local business, what money we made was reinvested in the business. We had a lot of community projects. The money was going back into the community. So ethics was a big thing. We weren't a massive corporate business that was making ridiculous market margins, putting fees up all the time. So it was talking to people, saying, you know, what exactly we offer, and we rarely lost anybody because of price, but we wasn't afraid of defending why our fees were where they were, and explaining. So I think it's, don't compete on price, compete on quality and your added value. I can't think of any business that survived long term competing on price.
Definitely. If you're able to talk about it, what was the process of selling CFS, and essentially what drove you to sell CFS? How did that sort of conversation come about? Were you considering it for a while, or did a good offer come across and you thought, I'm happy to move on and to do some other things?
The goal was always to sell it as a management buyout, or a workers' cooperative. But as time was going on, we could see that wasn't, workers' cooperative wasn't going to work. Changes of the business meant that we only really had one long-term manager. I was looking to sell in a couple of years' time, but basically we had an approach by a big group that wasn't in our area. They'd been in conversation for some time. They had a new person who lived in our area. So we had an informal approach, which didn't really fit what we were looking for. And then when they got to understand the business and what I was looking for, they made us an approach. It meant that we were able to bring forward what we were looking to do by about 2 years. We wanted to ensure that the staff and our management team and the families were safeguarded. Their business model fitted with what we wanted. And to be honest, we took the decision that it was better to go 2 years early and achieve what we wanted. So we took the offer. I think all parties were satisfied with those offers. But again, it wasn't something that, it all happened quite quickly within just a matter of months. But a lot of that was because we had everything in place, because we'd always run it as a big business. So we had all the systems, all the policies, the procedures, all the staff training, everything was already in place. So we went through due diligence in a matter of a couple of months, whereas some of the businesses that I'm working with are taking 12 months to go through due diligence. So it all happened quite quickly, and it's worked for all of us.
I'm going to go shifting gears. We're sort of going to now focus on your post CFS. So you are started a new business called your global business mentoring. Sorry, I was lost my document here. So how do you approach leadership and building teams? I'm quite interested in that.
Okay, so everything happened much quicker than we thought. We'd already had a plan in place and was already starting to build up a presence I don't do social media personally, so I was already starting to build up a network on LinkedIn, starting to sort of sell more of me as an individual outside of me as the managing director of the business. So part of what we've had to do is almost start from scratch, but with some foundations there. So it's been building up social media content, building up networks, getting, same as with the previous business, getting content, looking at what we can engage with. There's been a lot that we've been doing behind the scenes, but obviously it's still early days having sold the business. I've still been involved with some of the exiting on that. My team, I've got two business associates who are with me on a sort of, we speak on a daily basis, and I've got a wider pool of people that have worked with them. Some of them work with me as advisors to my business going back for 25 years. So we've built a team around us, and that's what we're trying to get across through our social medias and through everything, is that high quality. Remember the Institute of Advisors, which is Australian based but worldwide. So we've got that background. I'm delivering mentoring for a British government program, so I'm developing networks outside. But really, it's gone back to almost starting from scratch and learning to sell me and my skills, and then Jack selling his skills as someone who's much younger, who was much into AI, Adam with social media. So it's building on our individual networks, but under the global business mentoring approach. So it's getting there. But the frustrating part is I want to be back up to thousands of followers and thousands of views, not the low number.
With the global business mentoring, are you prioritizing certain platforms? So I know you mentioned LinkedIn. Are you focusing more on, say, maybe just LinkedIn, or is it more on like the Facebook, Instagram side of things? Are you looking at like TikTok, YouTube, or are you just posting everywhere equally?
So the strategy at the moment, because I've just come out of the funeral sector, I've got a little side post as the funeral business mentor. So I'm targeting independent funeral directors who are seeing their business change, who might have known us from socials. A lot we're finding are not doing anything on socials at all. So I'm focusing on that, including mail shots, old-fashioned phone calls. So to do that, I'm focusing on a mix of LinkedIn for probably about 50%, and 50% on Facebook, including joining things such as funeral directors worldwide, UK funeral directors. So I'm focusing on that for the funeral sector, whereas for the wider global business mentoring, we've just finished developing the website, so we're looking at wider social media. So we've got different reels, different video, different content to go out, depending on who the audience is. So one of the things we're looking at is with AI, for example, we're targeting people who haven't really got an idea what it is. So Jack's doing different reels saying, if you heard about AI but don't know what it is, talk to me and I can help you. So we're building. So I'm a little bit ahead of the curve compared to what we're doing in the other sectors, but our strategy is that it would be across all platforms so we can see where the business is coming from. But again, we see a lot of it is going to be selling business owner to business owner, as opposed to society in general. So that's where we would probably concentrate a bit more on LinkedIn and a bit more on Facebook, where you can get a defined target group through different groups. But we will still do some on the other platforms, just to keep the content out there and see if we do pick up somebody that's perhaps not seen us or is on their socials of an evening and thinks, oh, I've seen those during the day, and then reaches out to us of an evening. But I think it's because it's totally different to what the funeral sector was. So it would probably be LinkedIn and Facebook at the moment.
With reference to the industries and I guess the niches that you're targeting, aside from the funeral sector, is there any industries that really draw your attention right now?
So once to focus on the funeral sector, over the years that I've been providing business advice, we've also worked with country house, hotel, restaurant, tourism, leisure. So we're also doing some work. We're talking with some businesses in those sectors. Jack is focusing on AI. We're also, one of the things that we're looking at is I'm focusing on exit planning and succession planning. So we're also looking then at the two younger elements of my team. We're looking at developing the next generation going to take the business over. So we've got a variety of different approaches, trying to get our overall goal of identifying owner managers of businesses that need to either start thinking about growing the existing business, or when they come to exit the business, and ensure that the people behind them have got the skills, whether they're exiting the business or growing the business. We're just trying a multi-pronged approach, basically saying, again, people buy from individuals. So there are people who may engage with me as being older. There are people who may engage with Jack as being much younger, or Adam as being much younger. So it's really looking at instead of a one cap fits all, we've got a range of reaches within our armory and see what works.
What are some of the most, I guess, common mistakes that you do see business owners just generally make?
I think the first big mistake is that many business owners, the business is running them, not them running the business. And they say, well, why do we need your help? We've got a successful business. They've never really had somebody from outside to look at their business and say, do you realize you could actually make this even better? Going back to my days years ago as a business advisor, we were involved with benchmarking. And that's the other thing. If you only run your business and you don't look at the wider business community, you might think you're doing well, but other people in your sector could be doing better. Or you could be growing in your sector because other people are getting out of the sector. So it's really, you do need to have somebody, a fresh pair of eyes, come in and work with you, and just work with you. You've probably got the answers, but it's somebody working with you. And also by having somebody come in on, say, a monthly basis, there's more accountability. You've got a greater chance of getting what you need to do done, because in a month's time, somebody's going to come back and say, where are we with this? What did you find? What's the progress? And that covers any aspect of business. People tend to just use an accountant, see an accountant once a year. You need to have somebody outside coming in on a regular basis. Otherwise, you've lost all connectivity with the outside world.
With your new venture, would you ever look into possibly, purchasing businesses in terms of maybe starting like some sort of private equity type business model? Have you ever considered anything like that?
At my time of life, I wouldn't be interested because basically I want to be semi-retired so I can enjoy traveling. So at my time of life, I feel I've been there, done it, don't want to do any more. The others have. We've also got a couple of little sidelines that we're trying and testing. But in terms of investing in any business, we wouldn't really be interested. We also think that it's not perhaps ethical if somebody comes to you for business advice to turn the business around. Should we really be then perhaps buying low, selling high? So I think it's a mix of my age, the ethical question of generic business advice, and I think I would now struggle going into an established business and then being part of another team. I've been leading a team now for so long, it would be difficult. So put in a short answer, no, not interested at my time of life of buying a business, but that's just me at my time of life.
Yeah, before we wrap up, I do have one more question. This is more like a mindset question. Do you have, I guess, a sort of area that you or time in your life that you've really struggled mentally in business? Would you be able to walk me through maybe some experiences that you have that maybe some other business owners would also have?
I think definitely yes. And I think anybody who says no either isn't aware or doesn't have the emotional intelligence. Because I think when you're running a business and it's your business, it's a very lonely place, and you're responsible for your stakeholders, your customers, staff you employ, and it's very challenging when you set your plans and things don't happen, and then you start questioning, is it you? Have you offended somebody? Have you got it completely wrong? And I think that when it's your business, you haven't got people to bounce those ideas off. When you're an employee, you've got peers, you've got managers. In a corporate world, they've got a network you can speak with. Whereas when you're on your own, you've got to drive everything. There's things that you can't speak with your staff about. There's things that my wife was a co-director, shareholder of the funeral business, but had no involvement in it at all because she had her profession. So when we get home, she'd want to talk about her day. I'd want to talk about my day, but you don't want to take your baggage from the day home. So mental health is something that I think is very difficult. Your brain is your best asset, but also can be your worst liability. And it's something that it is lonely. And that's why I think that you need networks. And I've overcome that by having people around me all the way through CFS, having quasi finance directors, marketing directors, social media, having people that you can speak with in their field. And everybody around me has run their own business as well. So they understand the stresses of you're risking your money. You've got no guarantee as an employee you'll have your wages at the end of the month. If it's your business and it's a quiet month, you start thinking, if it's busy, people always think you're making a fortune. If you've had good holidays, or look at him, he's doing well. They don't see the stress and the fact that even when you're on holiday somewhere, you're still thinking about the business. If one of your clients reaches out to you, you still feel you don't switch off. So definitely mental health is something that struggled a few times, and it's not easy to switch off.
Where can people find you? What criteria of people are you really looking to take on right now with the global business mentoring? And do you have any final words, final thoughts, and final things you would like to share in general?
So we've got our website, globalbusinessmentoring.com. We've got our individual on LinkedIn, Dean Thomas, Global Business Mentoring, the Funeral Business Mentor. We're just basically looking to work with owner managers of businesses who basically realize that they want to grow the business, they want to look at exiting the business, or even that they just think, hey, I've been doing this for a while, I could do with looking at some fresh ideas. So what we're trying to look at is owner managers who basically accept that they want some form of external involvement that can help them take their business to the next level. And what we say is that we're effectively your GP. We will bring in experts in different sectors, if and as required. We're not experts at everything. We've all run our own businesses. We understand, we've got the theory, and we'll work with people. So it's any owner managers, or even the next generation who want to take over their family business or the business they're in. We can help with that, and doesn't matter where in the world they are. Most of our engagement is via Teams meetings, phone, and we will do whatever. If we can help somebody, we'll do whatever we can to see that they achieve that goal.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I still have lots of questions that I could potentially ask. It'd be great to say 12 months and 12 months time. Potentially do another podcast, or another interview to see sort of where things have gone, what you're doing from now into 12 months time and further on.
Yeah.
But for now, it was great talking to you, and I really appreciate you coming on and doing this little podcast, this little interview.